We're going to spend the next couple of minutes, and by a couple of minutes, I mean like hour and a half, going through some of your questions to me about the lore of the world. So these are questions that come in from you by a form that I have officially closed because I already have way more questions than I'll ever be able to answer. But I'll just keep going through them. We'll do little bits and pieces of these Q&As pretty much like every time I have the opportunity to do so. I'll tack some on wherever we want to do some more things. So these are questions that came in mostly from the Discord, and I will try to answer them as I can. Some of these I've already answered. Some of them, they just like, you'll see. We'll ruminate on a few, and then we'll wander back and forth for some of the others. So first question of today comes to me from Aquila Triari pilot Demetrius Crowell that says, I was hoping you could shed a little more light on the AI systems that'll be used in the game. The tech that was used pre-synths must have been massively helpful for mech units, ways of jacking into the system. Let's just talk about AI generally, right? Let's talk about like artificial intelligence, virtual intelligence, its place in the world. So when I think about AI, VI, and synth intelligence, my thoughts are synths. They're both artificial and intelligent, but they're more like grown, preconditioned super brains. They're not programmed in the way a computer would be. Like we use psychic powers and they're like mentats basically. They're real brains, they're biological computers. So I don't qualify synths as AI, though like they technically are because they're artificial and they're intelligent. Like Westworld synths, more human though. We talked about that a little bit, like what synths look like. Less human than that. When we talk about AI and VI, there's no true AI in our setting. The exclusion of that is that if they want to risk the destruction of their house, Triangulum probably have some ideas about making computer intelligences. We know one of the great apocrypha of the Earth is we know the Earth was destroyed or fell, at least in part because of AI. AI is a crime because our ancient people died because of, like, we cannot return to Earth. Earth is hell because of artificial intelligence. So culturally, religiously, right? Like AI is bad stuff. So we don't touch that. But of course, it doesn't matter how bad something is. I'm sure AI is Maltech. We don't do it. But obviously somebody is like researching it. From a GM perspective, as the creative director, like even if you make some cool narrative storyline, House Triangulum, if you make some cool thing about AI, I probably won't touch it because I'm trying to distance this game from Swansong. So it's just not a thing I'm super interested in exploring. But we will have VI, and a VI is a fake artificial intelligence, a semi-intelligent, like Super Siri or Super Alexa. It's capable of listening, capable of understanding things like body language and tone. It's capable of pretending kind of badly to be human, but only because it's there to like sort of help us. It's virtual, like fake intelligent. And we all kind of know that it's fake intelligent, but it's there. Yeah. Like Cortana, but never as intelligent. I'm not ever going to humanize them. I'm not going to personalize them. They're not self-aware. Jarvis is too far. Yeah, Phil's got it. Like Joy, right? If you watch Blade Runner 2049, like Joy. Capable of seeming really human, and for dummies like Kay, might as well be human, but not that. They're helpful and they're very limited. Synths aren't AI because AI are superhuman gods in Stars Without Number. AI are like, you have to break them or else they become hyper powerful deities. And I'm not interested in going down that. I'm not going down that route. We can have like Hatsune Miku. We can have VIs that we could trick into being intelligent or thinking they're intelligent, but they're not. Yeah, that's sort of the jam, right? Virtual intelligences. They're there to help us. We've explicitly made them not human, and that's the end of that, right? Synths are just superhumans with no soul. That's what's so awful about them, is they're better than us, except on the inside where it counts. Yeah. Okay. So that's kind of what I think about that. So like some ships, like larger ships, probably run with VI helping, VI subsystems that are human interfaceable. But no, there's no AI. VI, we don't give them personalities. Like culturally, we admonish people who do this. Like it's not like in Her where everybody falls in love with their virtual intelligence. In this, we're like, gross. Don't do that. That's dumb. That's like someone falling in love with their car. It's not. It's a niche fetish thing. It's maladjustment. Yeah. Okay. So let's see. Dominus Fornex Julius Glycus asks, do nobles marry between houses? Yes. We talked about that a little bit. Did Crux cause animosity by killing other houses' family members? I mean, yeah, but they did it for the Empire. So we can't really blame them. Let's see. S. Harvey of Acre asks, can a faction have a valid casus belli against the High Church? Okay, so every time I feel like people use this term because they've played too much Stellaris. It's a Latin expression meaning an act or event that provokes or justifies war. You can't declare war on the church. So no. Yeah, or Crusader Kings. No, you can't. You cannot. The church is not an organization to declare war on. Plus, also, there's only one government in the universe, and that's the Empire. So you're either part of the Empire or you're not. So if you declare war on the church, you're declaring war on the Empire. In which case, all the noble houses will just like mess with you. So that's a thing. There's no valid reason to go to war against the High Church. I guess if the church started like mobilizing and picking fights with people, you'd want to defend yourself. But you'd have to justify it pretty hard. The church is a power. They're a power. They're a big deal. But Acre, so are you. So maybe fuck them, I guess. It's up to you. What you could do, though, I guess, is if the church and the state become one, right? If we don't get an emperor or an empress or an emperor, if the church takes the throne, then yeah, you could hella just declare war on the empire and just be like, no, this is bad. Separation of church and state. Yeah. I mean, again, government and religion, they're intentionally unclear. There's no culturally valid way right now, with the status quo being what it is, to declare war on the church as an organization without also immediately being painted as one of the bad guys. This is not a church that goes on crusades. They use the noble houses to fight their enemies. If the High Church buys a bunch of like Space Marines and stuff, I'm really curious how they're going to flavor that. They're allowed in the faction turn. I'm just super curious. Like, I guess they could be like a Papal Guard, right? The Swiss Guard on a huge scale. They're a defensive army. That's fine. That's allowed. Okay. Satoshi of the UPC asks a meta lore question. Ooh. With the overwhelming amount of fan content before the show's even started, what would you like to see to make it easier for you to ingest? This is a great question. So the best way, and this stream I think proved it, the best way that I think you can put forth the stuff you made is putting it in the wiki. I think every faction has one or two people who are doing God's work and punching data into the wiki. That's the way. As you saw today, like I pulled information about a planet, I pulled information from the wiki. Things that I make will go into the wiki, and things from the wiki will make their way into the game. So if you are one of those noble souls who is editing the Verona wiki, God is Messiah glare down upon you with his loving beard. I don't know. I love you though. Thank you. Do that. It's a wiki. Is it a wiki? Wi-Fi. Like the Wi-Fi that you use to power the internet. Yeah. Don't edit my Wi-Fi. Okay, so Perfect Gautier of the Quill of the Church of Humanity Repentant. How would you describe the relationship between the Church of Humanity Repentant and the Imperial Church? How did you envision it? This is a great question. Great question. I love it. Okay, so take one enormous step away from what science fiction has fed you, Games Workshop, about how religion works. The Church of Humanity Repentant and the Imperial Church, the way you should look at them is post-heretical, like Renaissance era separation of Catholicism and Protestantism leading into like Anglicanism. They worship the same, fundamentally, they believe in the same God, and not even the same God like in the religions of the book, like Judaism, Islam, Christianity way. They believe that there is a God that looks after humanity, right? They both care deeply about the human soul. They just believe God's will to be different. The Church of Humanity Repentant believes that God is a kind God. God is a New Testament God. God is a gentle God, a God of love, a God of embracing all that which is intelligent. Aliens can be God's creatures. For what is a synth if not a human life wrought by our hands? Right? Is a human born of our mind any less human than a human born of our loins? The High Church saith yes. The idea here is like, it's about what they think the course of the human soul is. It's not heresy. It's not like it's dumb, basically. I think that the High Church has the privilege and the ability and the fact that they're the status quo religion to just be like, what are you doing? Don't listen to them. That's stupid. This is so dumb. Why would they say this? Why would they think that? That's crazy talk. And the Church of Humanity Repentant is basically like, yo, we fucked up. Humans have fucked up so many times. We have done nothing but murder and spill blood, and now we are poised on the brink of another terrible war. Please, we have to give up all this bloodshed and horror. At least that's where we're going to start. I don't know. We'll see what happens. So I see their relationship. It's not open war because that's not how churches do battle. They win hearts and minds, right? It's just that the Church of Humanity Repentant is on the outside of the status quo. They don't have the social power. Yeah. So that's a thing. Okay. So Fefeli Somnium of House Aquila asks, is there a dueling culture in the setting akin to Dune or Fading Suns due to prominence of personal shields? I mean, not due to prominence of personal shields. We don't have any slow blades. But the idea is that dueling is a way to prevent war. Dueling is a way to get nobles to be allowed to fight each other on an individual level that doesn't drag their whole house and the whole empire down into a horrible civil war, because we've had enough of those. So either yourself or hiring somebody to fight for you. If you get that's why House Reticulum, after my last stream, had a bit of a identity crisis where they were like, well, if we only make special weapons and we're just responsible for duels, why are we important? And the reason that we need Reticulum is because without them, without their understanding of the ritual of dueling, without all of that stuff, war would happen. War is inevitable. Human ego is such, ask the Church of Humanity Repentant, human ego is such, especially the ego of nobles, is such that we would devolve into terror and war and awfulness if it weren't for them. They are the guardians of our good behavior. They are the ones that keep it so that our personal problems stay personal. Reticulum is culturally very, very important, even though they're relatively small. Okay. Sword Cooper of House Serpens says, are noble houses officially allowed to promote non-nobles? House Serpens has some lore about elevating select students. I mean, I think every house so far has had some, like, how do we make peasants into nobles? It's very rare, and it's gross, and it's gauche. Don't do it. Ew. Why would you do that? I mean, I guess you should if you want to. I'm not going to tell you not to. But, like, it's one of those things where you all do it, and then you all make fun of each other for doing it, right? Don't Don't. If you want more nobles, make them with your body. Don't raise someone up. That's gross. J Master of House Vela says, do we already have bases of influence on other planets? No. You'll each get a base of influence in your homeworld, and that is it. We'll watch the spread later. Yeah. MW the Cool of the Trilliant Ring says, so, Far Verona sounds like a reference to Fair Verona from Romeo and Juliet. Why was this title chosen, and what link, if any, would you say the show has to the aforementioned play? Good catch. That is why it is called that. So yeah, Far Verona came from clever, right? Really difficult to guess. Yeah, it absolutely came from the beginning of Romeo and Juliet. And I will say no more. It's like, obviously on the surface level, I think everybody figured it out. It's about Romeo and Juliet is about the human level impact of warring houses, old grudges, break to new mutiny, right? Like the whole fucking theme of the upper part of the play is about that. The actual reason why we called it Far Verona and what Far Verona is, we'll get to that. I'm not going to tell you anymore. But yeah, that's very much, it's an intentional and very purposeful reference. You got it. Good work. Correct. I will confirm. Moongun, that's not your name. You don't even have the right house. Moongun of House Aquila. Moongun of House Aquila says, would it make sense if House Aquila removed or retired the Blood Eagle from power? Sort of a we take care of our own kind of deal. Someone knows why the Blood Eagle disappeared, why the Blood Eagle died of natural causes. But no one, there's no one story. Everybody blames or takes credit for everyone else's actions. Markab of House Vela says, how likely is it to use the house recognized title? 100%. 100%. I will do it. I am doing it. No, Far Verona is not the name of the ship. I thought about it, but I have a better use for it and have for a while. Yeah, I've got a better use for it. Don't worry about Far Verona. We'll figure that shit out. You'll figure it out later. Simon L. of House Triangulum says, what has happened to all the research House Triangulum has made about AI and other forbidden subjects? Ixnay! Simon, don't talk about that shit out here where everyone can hear you. Jesus! Come on! Is it destroyed, or does House Vela have some vault where it's all kept? I'm not going to tell everybody where your secret shit is. If you want to make a deal with House Vela to hide it for you, cool, but like, ixnay, shush. First rule of Maltech Club. We don't talk about our Maltech. Where'd all my nanomachines go? All right. So Zerberon of Acre says, how much is known about the UPC and the situation on Ukiah? We talked about the UPC. So the UPC is not a real thing. The UPC is not a real thing in the sense that, like, if you were to, they're not a real thing in the same way that Skaven are not a real thing. So, like, if you went to your local constabulary and you were like, there's a UPC conspiracy to overthrow the government, they'd be like, get the fuck out of here. Go away. But no, they're like hella real. It's just that they're so fractured, right? Like they are doing what terrorist agitators do, right? They have multiple interconnected cells. They are agitating among worker populations, and they are rising up in small ways. Listen, go get yourself a copy of the Communist Manifesto and read that shit, and you'll see they're operating like they're doing their thing. There's several small interconnected uprisings, and the thing that they all have in common is they're here for the proletariat. So yeah, that's the situation. I think right now it's all pretty on the DL, but eventually the idea of like, wait a second, this UPC thing, like this is a real problem, could absolutely be a thing. It could totally happen. Yeah. Exarch reformist Gideon Enderida of the High Church of Messiah as Emperor asks, "Hi, Adam. I'm wondering, in High Church theology, do aliens have souls?" Gross. No. Only humans have souls. There might have been a time when we first arrived where some branch of the like religious organization was like, imagine I'm like a Japanese animation character and I'm holding a textbook and I'm looking at a butterfly and the butterfly has the text over it that says aliens. I have my hand out and I'm like, and at the bottom of the screen, it says, "Are these angels?" Just imagine that. Somebody was like that when we first got here. But that was before the High Church was like officially formed. Exarch Karmist Lorelei Patel of the High Church of Messiah as Emperor. Has the church ever had to step in as regent in the past? No, thank goodness. No. There was probably a time where like an exarch wanted to during the like uncertainty. But I don't think there was ever like an official like regent. I think that, yeah, they don't really want that, right? Like it's a backup plan, but it was put in place just in case to try to prevent all of this horrible shit from happening again. It's like, a church regent is like those big inflatable bumpers that they put in the gutters of a bowling alley when it's like a 5-year-old's birthday party. That's the metaphor I'm going to go with. Triari Aquila Amatius Harland of House Aquila asks, what was the effect of the Blood Eagle's reign hundreds of years ago? Murder. Just so much murder. Like just killing. Why is he seen as the potential evil that House Aquila could become again if they're offered the throne? Because we don't want Murder King again. There's no one else to murder. We have to murder ourselves. If an alien threat were to make itself present, like if the aliens came from another sector riding on waves of space doom, then maybe we need another Aquila Emperor, but we really don't. We don't need that shit. It was bad. It was bad the first time. What could we do to prove that House Aquila is different from what we used to be? Loyal service to the throne. And you have been, right? House Aquila, no one really blames, like, okay, I'm going to use the belabored metaphor. Only people who are ignorant look at Germany and are like, yeah, but what if they're still Hitler though? Right? Like that's a really fucking ignorant perspective. And I don't think most people, political scientists of the sector especially, but like most people don't do that. I mean, the Blood Eagle's personal crest is probably banned. It probably isn't used. It's the people who think that House Aquila and the Blood Eagle are like inherently related somehow. These people are stupid. But also there are definitely Aquilans who in secret are like, yeah, but like, what if we bring him back? What if she was awesome? Let's just do it again. Those people are stupid and we shouldn't do that. But again, there may come a time where we have a threat to the sector so great that we might consider it possible that we could use another Blood Eagle. We just don't have anyone for them to kill right now. Yeah, so that's the thing. Yeah, there's definitely some asshole organization called like Sons of the Talon or some fucked up shit that are like, oh yeah, man, we love it. We love the Blood Eagle, right? Neo-Eagleists. Yeah, right. Fuck them. The problem is the Blood Eagle, she was terrible, but she seized power during a chaotic time. We are looking at a new time of potential chaos, and if nobody takes the throne, if we can't come up with a leader, it's possible somebody might rise that could serve that purpose. But I hope that House Aquila would have learned from their mistakes in the past. Cool. Okay. Question about synths, which I've already answered. Dark Vlagger of the 14 Red Dogs says, How intelligent are the aliens of Kama? I believe they were modified by the guild, but to what extent? Are they a bunch modified and other fully artificial? Are they reduced to slavery? Are they sentient beings with rights? Aliens are never sentient beings with rights. That's silly. But I guess if a planet were technically outside the Imperial cluster, let me look at Kama. Let me see here. Planetoids. I'm looking at my sector map. Kama. Alien Ruins, Night World, Pleasure World. Oh, this is planet guild sex. I mean, I think they're all horribly modified. They are an alien species that was modified by the guild to be easier to have sex with. And I don't want to think about this question anymore. Moving on. Just we don't talk about that. Deltaeus Greenclaw of House Vagrant asks, how long has House Vagrant been organized under the Council of the Seven of Six? Has the Southern Rim previously been home to other orders of piracy and only now they're organizing? Has the organization and collaboration represented been around much longer than that? My understanding of House Vagrant, my understanding of House Vagrant is that it only exists now because we talked about them being sort of like vultures. They've seen an opportunity to form up. There's always been pirates. There's always been opportunists, but now is the time. Kind of the same as the UPC. Now is the time to rise up. There is a weakness. And they're not rising up because it's the right thing to do. They're rising up because fuck you, nobles. Too long have you stepped on my neck. I want what's mine. So yeah, I'm really curious about the relationship between the UPC and the pirates because I feel like House Vagrant is like super aggressive and intense and the UPC is all fractured and weird, but if they work together, they could fuck some shit up. Keep an eye on those two. Let's see. Fairafex Fornax Rubrum Quinque of House Fornax asks, do the individual factions have very individual aesthetics in terms of ship design, i.e. cruciform ships for Crux, vaguely avian ships for Aquila? I mean, it's up to you. I think, like, if this was a TV show, we would want to know at a glance, but I think Fornax makes the ships, so, I mean, they don't make all the ships, but they make, like, most of the ships, so they would probably work with a person. And I think they have classes. Think of it like Star Trek, right? Or Star Wars for that matter. There are classes of ships and each house might have their own classes. You wouldn't have every single spaceship be super unique because that doesn't make sense. You have to create the machinery to build the ship. And then once you do create the structures, you make multiple ships over and over and over. Yeah. But also I think that super rich individuals can buy their own individual like ship designs. Okay. Let's see. We talked a little bit already about how old people live. If you're a noble, you can maybe live to be 100 or 200. If you're a person that isn't a noble, you probably only live to be 80. If you're a member of the Trilliant Ring, you live long enough that we have not tested yet how long you can live. It may be possible that we have invented technology that can make a human immortal, but it's only been around a couple hundred years, so we don't know yet. I guess we'll find out when you don't die forever. That's a thing. Let's see. Just Mitchell S. has a couple of questions for me of House Reticulum. Let's see. Is the voting that the houses minor have to do a mechanical abstraction to make them work as a faction, or is there a certain amount of narrative discussion going on in-universe? Yeah, the minor houses have an in-universe council. They have a group, they have a synedrum or whatever they called it, where the houses minor, they work together as a council in the same way that a major house would, in the sense that, yeah, the Synedrium Astral, that's right. So they need to work together because they're so small. So that's the thing that's narrative and mechanical. You are reflecting my intentions already. So thank you for that. This is a question that comes up a lot, and this is not a lore question, but in the Discord, people ask me all the time, like, can we get an in-character general chat? No. There is no place in character where everyone would all just have access to everyone else. You are intentionally in character broken up. I did that on purpose. Yeah. Completely. That's very, very much on purpose. So no, you cannot. See, the problem with, like, there's no internet as we think of it. You know that old joke about the internet is a series of tubes and not a truck? The fucked up thing is that in far Verona, it's a truck. The internet is a series of trucks. Every ship is a truck that carries bits and pieces of the internet. It's an asynchronous network. Like in system, you can have a synchronous network of communication data, but you have to literally pile up all the new data, carry it to another sector, and then update theirs. It's a whole bunch of disconnected things. So you may never get information on one end of the system from another. It's just not possible. There is no internet. Like for the sector. Acheron Row is intentionally fractured on purpose. That's very much intentional. Jabba asks, what is the main population of the prison planet? In terms of like political or former soldiers, that kind of thing? Prisoners. The main population of the prison planet is prisoners. I don't know. I mean, people who are significant enough that they are never allowed out of prison. There's no, like it's a life sentence. What do we call that? What do we call that prison planet? Like, right, Gleipnir. That's right. Imperial Corrections Facility Gleipnir. Once you go there, you never come back. Yeah. It's exile to Gleipnir. You cannot return. Yeah. So it's got to be people who are willing to, or not willing, but who have like done the bad and who get there. Yeah. Yeah. Let's see. Okay. First Crux Friedrich Hieronymus of House Crux asks, what would be the implications for the Empire if the noble houses eliminated House Crux? I mean, someone would have to take over as like law keepers and lawgivers. There would be war, like straight up war between you and your allies. The Synedrium Astral would probably break up. Some of the minor houses would join you. Others would join the other side. We would have to probably restructure some of the faction turn stuff. And then, yeah, I mean, it would be bad. It would be bad for the Empire, but I mean, sometimes these things happen. It would cause a lot of chaos, and that would be interesting and horrific. The saints of the Church of Humanity Repentant would weep tears of starlight for humanity's terrible fate that we couldn't just get along. Zechterman, aka A. Guizman, of Acre, asks, could a former Cygnus member hide within the confines of Acre as maybe a director? Yeah, former members of Cygnus are hiding out all over the place, and that's why we have Crux teams hunting them down, bring them in for justice. I mean, this is basically just like, could a member of the Nazis move to Argentina? Like, yeah, you could definitely hide out, but also we're hunting for you. What's more complicated are there are already members of Cygnus. There are significant directors in Acre who were Cygnus. Yeah, Argentina. It's near Brasilia. You've never heard of it? So yeah, so the idea here is that like they already exist, but they gave up their nobility. So it's like, are you still beholden to the sins of the father? And that's a whole thing we'll figure out in our game. But yes, totally. I mean, there are definitely Cygnus who like turn themselves in to be like, I give up. I'm sorry. Please, like, I will snitch on the other members of Cygnus, etc. It's not like a pogrom, right? Like, there are lots and lots of Cygnus like serfs that just got transferred, mostly to Crux. But Eridanus moved everybody around because they were like, well, Crux isn't a house anymore, so you belong to this other house now. Now, if you lived on Gats, you're probably dead. Too bad. Sorry. That's how it goes. Yeah. So that's a thing. What is the frequency? This is from Nominator and Seer Draz Lausa. What is the frequency of MES? Sorry, Cygnus. Crux is a house. Cygnus isn't. Crux, you're fine. I misspoke. You understand. It's propaganda. You know that thing where they can make it look like you're saying anything, but you didn't say it? That's what's happening. Blame Prism. So what's the frequency of MES? I forget. It's in the book. Let me see. It's like 1 in a million or something. No, it's less than that. Or more than that. Let me look. Meta-dimensional extroversion syndrome occurs in 1 in like, it's a big fucking number. It's like 10,000 maybe. Let me look. 1 in 8. I mean, 1 in 4 if the game is to be believed. Meta-dimensional. I'm just like searching through the PDF here. I think it's 1 in 10,000, but MES started happening in 2240. Yeah, I'm not seeing the number. It's in the core book somewhere. Yeah. If you look at it, it's in there. I don't know how many like billions. How does that math work out for Lyra and their internal breeding programs? I don't know. Yeah, 1 in 10,000. But remember, this is everybody that's affected at all. Not everybody that's like a PC level psychic, right? This includes wild talents. This includes people whose psychic abilities fade. This includes people who go rogue and die. It's I would say like another 0 in terms of that are people that actually get their hand on it. Okay, so yeah, it's debatable, but the book gives you a claim, a basic claim. Yeah, okay. So some questions we've already answered. Oh, yeah. Okay. So let's talk about synths before all of this stuff. Synthetic animals are totally a thing. Synthetic animals are still a thing. They're fine. Since we're always animals, making copies of animals is no big deal. It's like breeding. You want a perfect owl? Rock and roll. Go for it. That is still completely legal. You can make synthetic animals. It's fine. The reason why synths are illegal, like synth humans are illegal, is because they are a mockery of humanity that have souls, right? And also because of all the other political shit. Before that, they were still tools. You know, you can love them like pets. You can love them like a well-crafted tool. You can use them, but you cannot. They were not people. So I would say it varied in terms of how we saw them, but legally they still had no rights. They were just a very, 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 very expensive object that you could own. No, you can't. A synthetic animal with human intelligence, I don't think that's possible. We don't have the tech for that. I think that maybe Cygnus did, but we've lost it. You're not going to find talking cats. I mean, like copies of animals or like perfected versions of animals, that kind of thing. Yeah. Okay. So we've talked a little bit in the timeline about Civil War. They've happened a bunch of times. Let's see here. Fury of House Reticulum asks, would the Emperor have had a Reticulum bodyguard? Maybe. Does that fall to another house? If so, what happened to that bodyguard when the Emperor was killed? And do they have a special ranking name as the Emperor's bodyguard? Yeah, I'm going to leave that up to House Reticulum. I'm going to say yes. House Reticulum, you gave the Cygnus Emperor a bodyguard, obviously your best bodyguard, right? Then that person could no longer do their job. That'll be up to you to figure out why and how. Did they bail out early? Did they quit? Were they killed? Did they have to abandon them? Did they commit ritual suicide? Reticulum will figure that out. I will leave that up to you. But there was a bodyguard, and then there wasn't. And you can talk with Serpents about how, like, why that allowed the assassin in, or that the assassin bypassed them, and you're embarrassed. We can talk about that, because I would love to hook Reticulum into that whole question. Yeah, did they sell out the Emperor? No, so they didn't kill. We already know who killed the Emperor, right? That was a Serpent's assassin. That person has turned themselves in. Okay. Y. Zamoyski of Acre asks, do synths need to eat or sleep, and can they reproduce? No, and no. Some of the older models still need to consume like protein paste or whatever to like make their body work. But newer models, most of the models can draw power from induction surfaces by way of they can like they can put their hand on a pad, or they can sleep in a special bed, or they can hold on to a certain kind of battery, and that will charge them. And those that induction batteries, they are too prevalent for other devices to be able to get rid of them completely. Synths cannot reproduce. Some of them have fully functional stuff, but only because those are synths that people want to have sex with, not because they can make, external stuff, not internal. They're just there to do what they do. We've talked about how you can find out what a synth is. How long ago did Sophia of Synthetic Sector Safety Support? This sounds like an organization we want to keep an eye on. This is a non-faction. I don't know who this Synthetic Sector Safety Support is, but towing a dangerous line. How long ago were synths developed to be visually indistinguishable from humans? Quite soon. It was always a goal of House Cygnus, so that we would not be creeped out by them. And also, like, you don't want to... We're not the guild. The pleasure robots need to look like people, etc. So I think a couple of generations of bad-looking bots, and then we got the human-looking ones. Are there any older key events or people in synthetic human history that's public knowledge? Same asker. I don't think so. House Cygnus's records were either closed by House Crux and seized, or destroyed in the destruction of GATS. Yeah. Jario or Hario Varelius of Fornax asks, what is the process of detecting synths? Well, Hario, we look in the book that says, here's all the synths. And we look at the picture, and then we look at the synth. If they look the same, we retire them. Then we cut their head open, and we yank out their brain, and we dig around in there looking for their serial number. When we find it, we did it. We killed the synth. And if we didn't find it, they found some way to hide it, and they were a synth anyway. There's also a way, if you have a specially trained psychic and a technical, like a question asker, you can, with like a 80% tolerance, figure out if someone is real or not. Give or take. But the best way is dissection. I guess, technically, you could capture them, sedate them, cut their skull open, take their brain out, dig around in there, and then put it back. But that kind of vivisection is pretty damaging. So I think the thing is the process for detecting synths, the interview, we tell everyone that it's 100%. Usually what happens if a human gets retired, unless they're a powerful noble, we kind of chalk it up to like, oops, sorry, and someone gets paid off. If it's 80%, no, it's like up to 80%. We can be 80% sure. The problem is that like sometimes honestly, when it comes down to it, if you get that far, if you're in a room with a Crux investigator and a Serpens psychic, and they're asking you if you're a synth, you're fucked already. Like, it just doesn't matter. Your life is ruined as it is. Because no one will ever, even if they're like, nope, they're not a synth, no one will ever look at you. You'll never get married. You'll never, like, it's just not, your life has taken a turn for the worse. Victor Almer of House Aquila asks a bunch of questions that have already been answered. So, Victor, you get your answers. Benzo of Crux want to know more about the prince. He's the best. He's so handsome and smart. The Honorable Damien Felix of House Vagrant asks, how much of a big deal is it that House Vagrant has organized now? House Vagrant is a bunch of nobodies. No one cares. They will bounce off the great shield of the Empire. But, like, actually, just look at the faction turn. They're significant. They're a big deal. We'll see. We'll see, Vagrant. Show me how big of a deal it is. So Anne-Sophie Aslak of the UPC asks, will the factions need in-character reasons for the action they perform? For example, would House Crux need an in-character reason to know where to look for stealth assets, given the location will be public knowledge out of character? No, we're not doing fiction first. This is not a fiction first kind of game. We will justify in fiction what happens mechanically after the fact. So play by the rules, but you don't need to justify anything in fiction. We'll do that after. So if House Crux goes searching for a stealth asset and finds them on the planet, we can backdate it to say, like, oh, leaks within the intelligence, whatever. Like, we'll work on it. So you just play by the rules, and it'll be our job to figure that stuff out. Now, it doesn't make stealth bad, because stealth was never stealthy. Like, in the game, remember, this is a game meant to be played by one person who knows everything. So it just means they're impossible to find and hurt. You know they're there, you just can't, they're slippery. It's not that they're invisible. So yeah, that's the thing. Don't worry about that. We all know they're there. It's just you have to waste time and energy getting them. We talked a little bit already about Earth and what its deal is and how nobody really knows anything but myths about it. Let's see. Here we go. The Quiet from Prism. Does the sector as a whole have the death sentence for Imperial citizens? We try not to murder people if we can help it. Because God says that human life is sacred. And if God says human life is sacred, that means thou shalt not kill, right? Maybe we remember this. I don't know. High Church, what do you think? Let me see. Did the High Church put in their sacred stuff? High Church. All right, High Church. I'm looking at the wiki. Here we go. Let us take a moment, my friends, to discuss the 10 holy virtues. The 10 holy virtues are faith. Faith above all. We must trust God and their chosen emperor to guide us. The second holy virtue is propriety. Be obedient to tradition, ceremony, courtesy, and station. Justice. We must reward those who behave rightly and punish those who do not. We must have fortitude and endure the challenges laid upon us to follow the rightful path despite them. We must have wisdom and strive to see the world in its truth and shape it according to God's will. Have temperance. We must show prudent moderation and diligent control over our desires. We must be diligent, ever persistent, expend all effort and attention in keeping ourselves and others to the true path. We must have charity and show compassion to those worthy of God's mercy. We must have integrity and honor our oaths and uphold the truth. And we must never despair, no matter how dark the hour, as God shines their light upon us. So, yeah, I mean, murder violates a whole bunch of those things. And I think that when we kill, we have committed a mistake. This is a thing that we have done by... It's not good. We shouldn't be killing people. But it happens, right? Killing non-humans is not a crime at all. It might be like a misdemeanor, or it might result in a fine if you kill something that belongs to someone. But like killing people, isn't cool. And I don't think that the death sentence is a thing. I think mostly if you commit the worst crime, you go to the Imperial prison planet, right? And if you die there, that's your problem, not ours. So I think no. I think the death sentence is not on the table. I think that's a thing. Can non-noble, this is the same person, can non-noble persons be party to a duel? Can they hire a duelist? No. No. You can't. Because dueling is just for nobles. I mean, you can get in a fight. I don't care about that. But no, it's a tool for the nobility. Herzog Crux Castle Alexander asks, what can you tell us about the history of the houses? Aside from what's already established, what do they do before our timeline? So we talked a little bit about how each house draws its name and its origins from a colony ship from ancient Earth. And I think now we've mythologized them to a degree where they're sort of pantheonic, but really they were originally just set to do a purpose. And then we built them up from there. Yeah, I haven't thought too much about like each house's specific event history. There was a question, I think Keeter's asked in chat, what if a noble challenges a non-noble to a duel? What if a man has sex with a pig? Ivan Azarov of the Deathless asks, did the Deathless become mercenaries right after the split with nobles, or did it take some time? It's in the timeline. You can find your official formation there. And Sophie Aslak of the UPCS, is the guild intended to be an allegory for all of us? A bunch of people just playing a game that affects the PC's whole universe? Or is that just a happy coincidence? I mean, ultimately, the guild is an allegory for me and the mods who have total control over everything, including moving planets around. But their purpose in the game is that I'm particularly fascinated in, like posthumanism as a thing, and the diversion of human as origin, alien kind of in fiction. I didn't want to play a game that was everyone was a transhuman or a posthuman. I wanted them to be miscellaneous sort of trickster gods, the Q continuum, etc., that I could play around with in the world. Yeah, I wanted them in the universe, but I didn't want the PCs to play them or for them to be the main core of the game. Yeah, they're the great Gazoo, exactly. They're my Deus Ex Machina, but I'm gonna try to use them very, very sparingly. If they show up, I want the PCs to be terrified. I want the audience to be like, oh God, no. And then I want to be able to just do kind of whatever silly thing they want to do and then disappear. Yeah, they're meant to be strange and unknowable. And I think if you think they're campy, give it time, because they're also horrifying. They are above and beyond human. Like Q was funny because he never turned anybody inside out, but the guild has done some bad things that we don't remember. Yeah, they're the Fae. Exactly. Okay. So a lot of questions from various people about Aquila and whether they have a navy. Yes, don't take Legion to be so serious. Like, of course, you have to have space. Morala Sia of House Eridanus asks, who deals with enforcement of tax law? Crux Aquila with Eridanus representative. Eridanus flags the violation of the law and usually acts to ask like, hey, you didn't pay your taxes. You should pay your taxes. And then if you don't, they send Crux to investigate, and then hopefully you pay them. And then if you have a reason to call in the army, I don't know that there's any historical precedent of the IRS calling in the National Guard, but like, I guess you could. I mean, I guess theoretically that would be possible. Let's see. A lot of questions about the UPC and why they formed, which I think the timeline stream covers pretty well. This is a good one. Harrisus of House Aquila asks, how normal are earth animals in Acheron Row? Are they all gone? Do we still have cows, pigs, horses, chickens? What about earth plants? So House Cygnus, their original purpose, I think we talked about way back when, like they would have been the ones that brought the like earth genetic seed bank, right? They would have brought forth all of that material. And I think some of it survived and some of it didn't. Some of it Cygnus upgraded. So we probably have cow, pig, horse, chicken analogs, but they're not exactly the same. Same with earth plants, right? Terraforming was a huge thing. I think it's familiar-ish, but we don't have all the same stuff. Yeah. Yeah. So yes and no. We talked about all the different Emperor. How important will the ship the PCs are on be to House Crux overall goals? And that's up to them. That's up to House Crux, honestly. Captain Haddock of Crux asks, does Crux have a police or law-keeping fleet? I don't know they have a fleet, but we talked about how they have cop cars, essentially, right? They have people that go out and handle making sure the law gets followed. That's really important, right? So obviously those are things. Crux doesn't go to war, right? Crux are cops. So when things get bad, they call in Aquila and they justify whatever they need them for as being against the throne, right? Because Aquila defends the throne. Aquila doesn't fight enemies of the houses. So when they went to war with Cygnus, the only way that Crux could fight against the Cygnus armies and ultimately the Imperial fleet was to call in Aquila. And they needed to justify that by getting the church to say, like, synths aren't humans and Cygnus is excommunicated. Let's fuck them up. And then Aquila was like, oh, okay, cool. We're on board. Some people think Aquila are a bunch of suckers for this. Some people think that they were doing their duty. They did protect the throne because the throne is still there, right? So it's a question. But Crux themselves don't have like an army and a fleet in that way. They don't go to war. None of the noble houses really go to war. Yeah, they commit police action. So Crux would have fought the beginning of the Vietnam War, but not the end part. The Aquila is the Marines. Just a side question from chat. How common are ships? Could a middle-class person buy a small personal ship? There is no such thing as a middle class. You're either poor or you're rich. Freemen are poor, technically, because they have no social support, and ships are fucking expensive. Super expensive. Yeah. Usually, you buy one from House Fornax, and it's all part of a larger economical structure. You don't just, like, take your wallet to Fornax and go, like, bloop, give me a spaceship. It's all much more complex than that. Yeah. Yoshin Cat of the United People's Collective asks, is the UPC technically within the boundaries of law, or do our activities violate enough law to warrant a military intervention? It's going to depend on the faction turn. Really depends on what you do. Right now, technically there's no such thing as illegal thought. Your meetings might violate local law, but I don't think yet you've done anything that warrants military intervention. But I bet you will. As soon as you really do anything in the faction turn, anything aggressive, get ready. Get ready. But for now, your secrecy is your greatest advantage. JR or Junior, I can't tell. Junior Takumi, Serpens Williams Virgil of House Snake Emoji asks, I was curious regarding familial lineages in the houses major and minor. Would my family be one long line of proud serpents, or does the house your family belong to differ? Marriage between houses, adoption, etc. the best among the nobility can trace their line, supposedly, back to the constellation ships. Supposedly. Which, yes, means you had sex with your cousins, and that happened. I imagine each house has one or two of these, like, families that are like, we're the best. And track all the way back to, like, my great ancestor was the chief medical officer of Constellation Ship Serpens. But that's a lie, because there was no Constellation Ship Serpens, right? It was Constellation Ship Caduceus. And, like, it's all horseshit anyway. Just like most, like, blood-based, like, lineage type stuff. But, yes, we definitely use it to leverage power over each other. Herodotus Fortuna of House Lyra asks, what is the ratio of psychics to non-psychics in House Lyra, given our focus on telepathy breeding? So you don't just breed for telepathy. You breed for all kinds of stuff. Really, House Lyra isn't about, like, let me look at the psychic stuff, right? Like, House Lyra, your jam, psychic-wise, is, like, fucking with people's brains. I guess telepathy covers that. Jedi mind tricks, right? Using psychic stuff to, like, make yourself more appealing, make people listen to you. Yeah. So, like, an average House Serpens operative, I would say if someone was like, I want to be House Serpens, what disciplines would I have? I would be like, oh, probably metapsionics and precognition, right? But if someone was like, I'm a House Lyra, what would I have? I would probably say telepathy, and then, like, that's it. Like, telepathy is really their main thing. They don't really focus on any other stuff. And I would say probably the ratio of psychics to non-psychics is the same as it is everywhere else. Like, you breed yourselves to each other and to other houses for lots of reasons. Yeah, that's a thing. Yeah, biopsionics would be a good, like, close second. Yeah. Has there been a Lyran Emperor before? Yep. It was during a time of mourning. Let's see. Lots of questions answered by the timeline, so definitely go check that out. There's a link in the Discord if you want to know the order in which things happened. Let's talk about the legal connections between the Empire and Acre. So H. Sylvia, director of Acre, asks, would the Empire at large consider Acre a lawful entity, or has the corporation been publicly associated with shady dealings and practices? Well, see, that's the thing. Like, Acre is technically, like, it's outside the Empire. It's legitimate, but not, like, on paper. It doesn't have the same rights as an imperial house, but it's so big and so rich and important that we can't, it's not a thing we can fight anymore. So it's too big to fail. That's right. It's too built into society. And plus, everybody has a cousin or a brother or a sister or a sibling of some kind or a family member of any kind that works at Acre, that is a director. They're fused in so many ways that their separation would be very, very painful for everyone. Yeah. We need them, but no one's happy about it. Here we go. I've got a question from House Vagrant that's kind of related. I'm going to answer these two questions. So the Honorable Damien Felix of House Vagrant and Nadja of House Phonax asks, how many workers were displaced by synth workers? They all end up a part of House Vagrant. And then also, how integrated were synths in all levels of society pre-Crux? Menial jobs, higher level status, equal citizens of the Empire. Okay. So, I don't think that it's about workers being displaced exactly. It was supplemented, right? There were worlds we could not colonize fast enough with human hands. Then we colonized them with synths. It was empty space allowing us to fill in. It wasn't people losing their jobs. It was making space. So now, with all these synths gone, we have all this empty space that used to produce food and energy and all that shit. And now there's too many jobs and not enough humans. So all this, like, dead infrastructure. So that's more the thing. It was like we were at one, And then we were at 1, and then the synth dialed us up to 8, and now we have 8 worth of infrastructure, but still 1 worth of people. So too many facilities and not enough worker placement. So they didn't take our jobs. They made new jobs and then they disappeared, which makes it very hard for us to run an economy. And then Naja's question about how integrated they were. Not as people, right? Like, I think there were definitely synths who were afforded better treatment than people, right? Like a House Cygnus leader's personal synths lived a life of luxury and beauty unimagined by your average pleb, which was why it was so disgusting. Like, how fucking dare they, right? How dare these robots live such beautiful lives? How dare they be allowed to listen to beautiful music and drink fine wine and sit at the fucking hand of the emperor while humans suffer? Gross. I think we can all agree that's gross. Yeah, okay. So, Clawforce, which is my favorite heavy metal band, Clawforce of House Serpens asks, what was the method of execution the emperor suffered? No one knows. What was the name of the assassin? We only know this person as the Serpens assassin. Were they caught? No, they turned themselves into the church. Interestingly enough. Also, how long had the emperor ruled before being killed? We saw that. How long was the house in charge and what preceded them? Same thing. Check out the timeline. Yeah, we know more about the imperial body than we know. So we assume because the emperor's head is in fine shape, they didn't get psychically head blown. They died and they're dead. And we haven't done like an autopsy. Lyra has the corpse. House Lyra has the corpse. The church has the assassin, and we don't know what to do with all of that yet. So the Orator of the West, Sunwalker Pixis Typhoon Coolio. Can I just say, I'm so excited your name is Coolio. Of House Pixis asks, is Fornax the only house without a past emperor? No, lots of houses haven't had emperors. We've been assuming Pixis has had the rare few. Nope, Pixis, you didn't exist long enough to have an emperor. So it'd be good to know if that's not true. Yeah, there's never been a Pixis emperor. There hasn't been a lot of them. You want to know? Let me review the ones we do know. So setting material. The timeline says we've had 2 unknown. So the first and second we haven't decided yet. The third emperor was a man named Emperor Diomikato, who named the planet after himself because he's a prick. I don't know what house he's from yet. Emperor 4 and 5, we don't know them yet. Then there were 300 years almost of no clear emperor. Then we had the Aquilan Blood Eagle. She was Empress the 6th. Emperor 7 was the masked one. That was the Lyran emperor. Then there was a Vela immediately following that. Then a Cygnus, and then we don't know. So there are 2 emperor we don't know that predate the current house structure. So I don't want to name them yet. Then we had Diomikato. Then we had 2 more. So we'll fill these in as we go. And then, yeah, I think House Crux has been around a long time. So probably 2 of those 4 were Crux. And I think 1 is an Eridani. So, yeah. I'll throw those in. Actually, let's throw them in right now. Let's just do that. So I think Crux probably... Let's go Eridanus, and then Crux, and then another one. 200 years of law and order before shit goes wrong. So I guess that would put Crux... not responsible, but Crux. This was a foreshortened emperor that led into the Civil War, right? It led into all the bad shit with the Scream. So this one I think is going to be like a Lost House or Unknown, right? We don't remember it, like a mythical Pan House figure, right? Like, I think this person wasn't a specific house. Like, everyone claims might not have been a house at all in the way we recognize it, right? So that's how that goes. Yeah. Yeah, I feel that. This is like the King Arthur, like an original, like emperor we don't know. This was at the end of the peace treaty. This was our very first emperor, and they're just like an emperor. Okay, all right, cool. And I think everybody lays claim to that person. So yeah, that's how that goes. Coolio. Let's see here. What year did the Scream happen? When was the Emperor? Yeah, so we figured all that out. Some more timeline stuff. Iron Fist of Glee asks, does Acheron Row have the standard Stars Without Number nuke sniffers and related events from TL4 drive cores? I recall you bring up nukes from time to time. Is the uselessness of nukes in core Stars Without Number just not a thing to make these more dangerous? I think most people have like nuke detection and all of the stuff from the book. Some people don't. Most people do, but some people don't. That's kind of what I was thinking. So a nuke could be dangerous, depending. House atomics, right? Everybody still has some of that shit laying around. Let's see. Markab of House Vela asks, is there a council of house leaders and how would they be seen? Public Senate, secret council? Will these be NPCs? If they make an appearance, be named and described as the speaker of each house? Yeah. So like, I've asked that all of the factions give me some room to be in control of those people, right? Like, I've asked that they let me name the highest level of each governmental structure. And I'll introduce them through the game as they come up. But I imagine every house has to have a leader, because whether they're a figurehead or they're like for real a leader, they're the person who, if the house took the throne, they would become the emperor. So we always have to have at least one person who is like that. Okay. All right. Let's see. Markab of House Vela asks, this is a cute one. Adam, what kind of ridiculous curveball are you going to throw at House Vela to turn them from the peace-loving book nerds into the most terrible evil the entire sector has ever seen? Well, I mean, I'm not going to make them evil. Evil is sort of relative. But secrets are tricky. I mean, so I'll answer this other question in a second. So, yeah, I mean, secrets are tricky. Maybe they know some things that they're keeping. I mean, maybe Pixis knows. I imagine Pixis doesn't, or they would have told somebody, because they're a bunch of blabbermouths. But, yeah, I mean, I think this is the thing. If you know more than other people, you get to decide what other people know. Sage of the Wood says, Pixis already has all their positions named. No, don't take whoever's at the top and cut them out, because they're mine. They're for me, not for you. Everybody else you can name if you want to. That's fine. Cool. Okay. Colonel William of the Deathless said, the Deathless have taken to naming many of our things after Slavic folklore. The name of our mech classes are based off of monsters or creatures of that folklore. Names of our ship classes are Slavic heroes. Do you like this? Yes. Do it. Rock and roll. That sounds awesome. DD the Shmei of Fornax asks, was the guild here before the rest of the houses, or did they come along with the houses with Project Constellation? No one knows or remembers. They're around now. I have mentioned before that the guild bases their structure on ancient Earth gaming guilds. We don't know why, or where they came from, or whether they came here with us, or they're from elsewhere. We don't know. Maybe they're aliens that somehow time travel. I don't know. They're space wizards. Noor of the Guild asks, why is the Guild the best faction? You know why. You know why. I have a hard time pinning down one reason. All right. So let's see. Rasul Vela Tureus, or Turai, asks, of House Vela, asks, is there any reason to believe Vela has access to something from Earth that in real life has significance, such as the Voyager Golden Records? Try to avoid that, because that implies some weird things about space. But they have I think of everybody, they have the best technical understanding of Earth, even though their understanding of Earth is very confused. They're the ones that have the best understanding. Yeah. So I'm going to give you, House Vela, the most leeway in that way. But even so, I don't think you have a really strong understanding of like Earth stuff. Yeah. Because that's part of my jam, right? I don't want you to like, it's boring to just be like, we know these things about Earth. This is true. It's better that everyone asks questions. Musir Vela Artishod Pantea of House Vela asks, would you prefer us giving a detailed proposal of ideas for lore? Or would you prefer a summary of ideas from which you can choose? Broad is always better than specific. Follow the canon first, then flesh out details about the canon, then let me draw from that. We'll all kind of feed on each other. Yeah. Give me room to make up my own stuff, but definitely like go ahead and come up with, I said in the last stream, livable small details are always better to me than big broad things. Yeah. In terms of like old mythology and stuff, I'm really interested in misinterpretations. It's really boring if you're just like, here's a story from Earth exactly as we remember it and know it. But what's more fun to me is, here's a story from Earth that we totally misinterpreted or got wrong. Like House Pixis might have a myth that's like, back in the days of Earth, there was a CEO of a corporation called Daedalus, and then there was a corporation called Icarus, and the CEO of Icarus was like, Daedalus, you suck because you're too cautious. And then we got on a spaceship and we flew out into space, and then they found all the great stuff. Like, misinterpreting mythology and misinterpreting myth and stuff is way more fun, because it just shows you're thousands of years and a psychic apocalypse away from its original point. So do that. Yeah, right? There once was a tortoise and a hare, and they got in a race, and the tortoise lost because he's slow. And the moral of the story is, fuck being slow. Gotta go fast. Right? Is it acceptable to have a cult that worships Weird Al as a god? That's like a little too silly. This is not a slapstick universe. Be subtle about your like, if you want to be goofy or weird, do it in a way that's subtle. And remember, take it seriously. Let us like grin about it, but don't, it's not Nebula Jazz. It's not 40K. We're not all like over the top ridiculous. Bring it down. Be subtle. Worshipping a black hole, sure, but like, again, like, remember, people are not like gonzo over the top ridiculous. This isn't Mad Max, right? Like, people wouldn't just straight up worship a black hole unless they were like culturally impugned in some other way. Be subtle. Give the people in the setting some credit. I mean, the guild are the exception that proves the rule, right? If you are like, oh, cool, this is like the guild. The guild's a watermark. I'm allowed to be that weird. You're not. If you feel like the stuff you're making up is as weird as the guild, dial it back like 100%. Yeah. Think about like treat the things that you create like they make sense in the universe, right? Think about that. Think about like why would this be a thing? Why would they believe this? and make sure that it feels like real, right? Like we look back in time and we look at like religions of 2,000 years ago and we're like, wow, that's really silly. Like, why would they think that sacrificing a goat would change the weather? And it's because of a lack of understanding. So if you're building something like, why would people worship a black hole? Why would they think that? Why would they think this is beneficial to them? Right? Understand the underlying stuff. Don't just be like, this is goofy for its own sake and I'm going to come up with this. Because I'll just ignore it if it's just silly for its own sake. Try to stay in tone. We're all trying to play as part of the same orchestra, right? Yeah, okay. So question from Decanus Aquila Virilis Libelius. How affecting is the Trilliant Rings life rejuvenation treatment? Can it make the user live forever? We don't know yet. Certainly they have lived as long as they have been treated. They're not dead yet. So that's cool. I mean, maybe. We'll see. Give them another 200 or 300 years. Foodmaster Pixis Overboard, nice, asks, any aliens that look like giant otters? No plans for giant otter aliens. I think the aliens are ottered enough as it is. We talked about there being psychics. I think this is actually a repeat question. I think somebody literally submitted this question twice. Is nobility exclusive in the Empire? Same Decanus from House Aquila that asks. Is nobility exclusive in the Empire? Could a lower nobility be formed over the span of Empire's life through non-firstborn marrying commoners, make their own path? No. You can't invent a new house except if you are splitting from an existing house. You can't invent nobility. We're getting nearish to the end of the questions. So like a lot of these are duplicates. Navigator Avior of House Vela says, what is your vision for the secret library? A physical, traditional library hidden somewhere? Metaphysical library, basically endless knowledge stored in the minds of the people of House Vela? Something else? I don't have any real opinions. It's your library. Let's talk about it. Make up with some stuff. We'll see what we can come up with. I could go either way. So whatever you want to do. You talk to me about it. We'll work it out. A lot of questions about aliens, which I understand you're curious about, but I'm gonna leave it until we get into the game proper. Avior, again, of House Vela, says, right now we've pretty much agreed that Vela has two forms of navigation, but only trains outside citizens in one. The second form is called immersion and not confirmed, just different. Would you implement this in the lore of the show? If we expand on the details, would be the reason to believe that a navigator that is a Vela citizen would be preferred over a non-Valan citizen. So, okay. So, here's what happens. House Vela makes the maps, which are like software protocols, ship engine protocols, and they make them in a specific multi-changing language. And by language, I mean like physical language, but I also mean like computer language, right? Valan navigation is proprietary intellectual property, which you need a Valan navigator to translate and operate. So basically, it's a racket, right? You pay House Vela to train, or you buy a House Valan trained navigator. They're the only ones that can operate Valan maps and Valan navigation software. If your Valan navigator dies on the ship, you are fucked. Too bad for you. So you buy them, and they need to renew because I imagine the language changes, right? Yeah, if you're real smart, you buy two. You get another backup navigator. The language changes, so you have to go in and renew your training. So the Valan navigator has to come back. They renew the training. The language changes. You update your software. You update the maps. And this is what keeps you safe traveling in space, moving from star to star. That's how that works. As for like secret, secondary, whatever, you have to abide by what the game says. There's only one way to travel space remaining. There used to be two, right? We had spike drives. We used those to explore. We found the gates, the jump gates. We used those to expand. and then the combination of the two. Eventually, we made so many jump gates, we didn't need the spike drives anymore, and we kind of forgot about them. Then the Scream destroyed all of our gates, and that's how it goes. So now, House Vela is the only way to get around. They own that proprietary tech. Now, of course, pirates are pirates, which is why intellectual property law is important, because they will try to pirate Valen maps, Valen navigation language. They'll try to back access that stuff. House Pixis has their own like alternate language. They're the bunch of weirdos that use the OS no one else uses. It's all illegal. It's all really illegal, and it's illegal because it's dangerous. It's going to get you killed. You wouldn't download a spaceship. So it's possible, but here's the thing. You can't invent travel that isn't in the book. Spike drives is still the only thing. That is all. That's how it goes. So you can't just invent a new way to get around in space. Even House Pixis has to abide by spike drives, spike space, etc. There's no other way to get around the sector. Okay? Okay. So that's how that works. You can't break the rules of the game. No one can. Okay, so a bunch of questions about how old you can be as a noble, what houses have been on the throne, which we answered today. Aram of House Vela asks, how out in the open are doubts about Crux's intention with House Cygnus? Do people talk about it openly? Is it a thing? No. Like, pretty much everyone believes the Crux version. But I would say that there are some people who, just simply out of distrust, don't believe anything any noble says, or don't believe anything any noble in any other house says, that kind of stuff. Like, the thing is, it's a secret it's a lie that if it is a lie, we all have to believe it. Because what's the alternative? Right? Like, what's the fucking alternative? What do we do? Like, yeah, okay, great. So Crux... Like, the thing is, it doesn't matter if you were alive at the time or not. You don't have access to that information. And Crux has killed everyone who is going to treat you or who's going to, like, listen. So anyone who tries to say, hey, Cygnus was a sucker and Crux, they're just trying to seize the throne. Who's going to listen to you? You're a crazy person. That's nuts. What are you trying to do? Destabilize the... No. The reason why House Vagrant and House UPC, why the UPC and House Vagrant can even exist is because they're not opposed to a specific lie. They're opposed to the whole structure. So they don't care if Crux lied or not. They're just like, fuck you. Right? They want to bring down the whole system. They don't want to reform it necessarily. That's the thing. So yeah, I hope that makes sense. Like, no one doubts it, not because it's true or not. And again, if you remember the beginning of the stream, part of examining this is real versus unreal. The convenient truth versus the like inconvenient access to what's actually going on. This idea that like, yeah, sometimes the lie is more palatable, the comfortable lie. Exactly. The comfortable lie is a big theme for this universe. We're living in one now. Yeah. Cool. Okay. Let's see. So these ones are all answered. Genostar of Vagrant asks, in previous games, you hinted at psychics having to take medication to keep MES in check. You're going to implement a mechanic to force them to keep track of their meds. Is it just background information? No, it's in the game. It's in this system and setting, at least in my version of it, in this, that if you have MES, you need to meditate, you need to take drugs. It's a physical condition, so you need to take drugs. And the only time that it would negatively affect you, and Anne asked me about this, so I've been thinking about it. The only time it would negatively affect you is if you are like a prisoner and you are taken away from your meds. Like if you're in a relatively comfortable situation, I'm never going to ask. But if you're like, cool, I got trapped in a hole in the ground for several weeks, then maybe then we'll start talking about it. But yeah, you need to take drugs to keep MES in check. That's a thing in Far Verona. Yeah. In the same way that like a lot of mental health stuff and physical health stuff need to take drugs to keep it in control, right? Or you get flare-ups, like weird stuff going on. Let's see, we got time for a couple more. Captain Kirill Kaleshi of the Deathless says, besides Fornax and the Guild, who has the capability to build ships, and in what capacity? Any faction can build ships. Fornax is just better at it than you are. Let's see here. Talked about the Blood Eagle's gender. Yeah, the Blood Eagle is officially a woman. Blood Eagle, she was an empress. House Aquila told me that's what they wanted, so I'm down. Where does House Aquila draw their troops from? This is from Legate Volk Gaius, based on tithes, conscription, volunteers, all of the above. They draw them from their own populace and others, I guess. But like their own. If somebody isn't a soldier, doesn't belong to House Aquila, they can't just like show up and be like, hey, I want to be part of House Aquila. Like, you belong to somebody, you serf. So, yeah. And that's up to you, and it's up to the planet and the communities on those planets. Trader Vic asks in a relatively complicated way, we decided there's no real government for Triangulum, Pythagoras being an advisory council. Can the families of Triangulum pay imperial taxes directly to Eridanus, be responsible for their own defense, education, and survival? Can the families of Habitat 1, Lovelace, simply pool their defense funds to administer the station and remain otherwise autonomous servants of the Empire? No and yes. Like, you're a noble house and you run your house however you want and pretend that you're not part of a hierarchically oriented imperial structure. But like, you're still citizens of the Empire. You pay taxes to the Empire, whatever. You run your planet. You are in charge of your own homeworld. And I don't really care how you organize it. Like ruling families, military junta, random draw from a hat. That's up to you. That's cool for you. I don't care. Look at the tags of your planet. Remember that you are still part of an empire and your own personal management is up to you. Yeah, that's fine. Let's see. I'm not really sure how to answer this question. It's from a member of the High Church of Messiah as Emperor, just named Weird. How observant of High Church authority were the houses before the current crisis? Very. The church has always been a part of the Empire. The Exarch was there to crown the first emperor and has always been a part of the cultural. Like, they probably had their own ship, right? There was a church ship that brought the various religions of Earth out into space, and that ship became the High Church. Yeah. Yeah. Let's see. Doug of the CHR asks, some factions have been toying with the idea of an underground synth railroad. Would this fit the world? Yeah. I mean, I guess you could do that if you want to. It's super illegal, though. So be careful. Because if everybody finds out that the Church of Humanity Repentant is like actively fostering illegal synthetics, it's a really good way to make your religion criminalized. So don't do it. It's super illegal. Being a religion is not illegal. Having beliefs and opinions that differ from the Empire is not illegal. But housing synthetics and not turning them over to House Crux for retirement, super incredibly, totally, mega illegal. Don't do it. Or like do it, but don't get caught. But be careful. Cool. Okay. So there's still like, whatever, like 100 questions. So obviously I'm not gonna like get through all of them today. But I do want to thank you for coming, for the GM prep, and sticking around for the Q&A.